This is why actually they did a study, and I don't know how official this is. I just heard about it. Was the guys?
Don't worry, I make studies up. All
Good.
the time.
Okay. Yeah. So, but this is I really heard, right. So was that the guys, you can't predict who gets through buds, but they said guys who come from wrestling sports and fighting sports typically do better.
Crew and chess as well.
Crew and chess, yeah. And so, and I think there's reasons behind that, just in terms of the way our brains work.
Crew for pain. Chess for thinking.
Chess for thinking. Crew for, and more specifically, compartmentalization.
Yeah, it wasn't individual crew.
That's right. It was team crew. Yes.
Crew.
In other words, I have to compartmentalize my pain because if I let off in any way, I let down my teammates.
How interesting is that there's a deviation between the singles rower
Yes.
and the doubles rower?
Yes. That's right.
I mean, there are some direct ties to almost every ethos of the community
That's right.
there.
Yeah. Whereas fighting, an individual sport in many cases, is still a sport where you are A, dealing with uncertainty, but B, you're constantly gauging the environment and having to manage that environment and adapt at all times. And you are actually, at least in the context of how you're being observed, you're cognizant of observation. So there is a quote letting down aspect of even individual fighting sports, which I think is
fighting and jiu-jitsu. I talk to people about this all the time, especially training partners. Everybody wants to win when they're in the gym, and if you go too hard, you can hurt your training partners or yourself.
Yeah.
And I remind myself and other people, like, jiu-jitsu is an individual journey, but it's a team sport.
Yes,
you have to have training partners.
Yeah.
For somebody to step into the UFC, I wish they actually would get rid of the walkouts. Like, just get the fuck in the ring. I don't need to see you in super slow-mo. Like, some of the songs are way better than others. Also, I don't never fight anybody from a stan with a chin strap beard. My God. It's just,
you're already setting yourself up.
My God. And the music they play, I'm like, all right. But
yeah.
They all walk out with a team, and there's a striking coach and a grappling coach and a conditioning coach, and all of those people. Like, to get somebody to that apex, my God, it is layered upon layered upon layered. It's team activity as well.
I would agree. And so, but I think it's fascinating when you get into the neuroscience and the neurology of what we actually have to do to make it through something like buds or any type of challenging situation. Those sports begin to help make sense of that whole thing. Because
what did Huberman think? I'm a fan of his, by the way. Never met the guy. I communicated with him once on Instagram. We messaged back and forth. I said, come to Montana. He's like, yeah, it sounds good. And that was it.
That sounds about right. He's so busy. That's
whatever.
What you get.
Because, I mean, the government spent millions of dollars trying to figure out who to get to buds.
Yeah.
They did psychological tests. They did IQ tests, EQ tests, personality assessments, training pipelines to begin with. And spoiler alert, the attrition rate was what it was.
Yeah.
What does Huberman think? What are his thoughts as to who makes it through?
Well, he was always curious as to our thoughts because he wasn't sure. I'll tell you what we both...
Does he realize we don't fucking know either?
Well, no, we don't. But here's what we both explored. We both explored this idea of uncertainty together. In fact, a lot of the stuff I have in that second book is stuff that we actually put together when we were working, and part of this was the way that individuals can process uncertainty, challenge, and stress, and how we and we could call it compartmentalization. If we simplify it to an attribute, it's compartmentalization. But how do we, in fact, allow ourselves to focus in the moment on only what we need and block out everything else? And this, and we're going to talk about the neuroscience behind this, but this is in fact the secret to buds. All of us who showed up at the beaches of buds day one had some sort of training or experience in this prior to, because if we didn't, we wouldn't make it through the first day.
I already know where you're going with this, and I can actually point back to the exact experiences that I had. I know where it came from.
Yeah.
And you probably got the advice in buds that I did.
Yeah.
Which is just make it to the end of the day.
Yeah.
And in Hell Week, just make it to the next meal,
Yeah.
which is a broad brush. Compartmentalize.
It's
Focus only on the moment.
Right.
Get through whatever it is,
Yeah.
When Master Chief Mayor is screaming at you with his jaw wire.
Nightmare? Is it nickname Nightmare? Yeah.
We hadn't even classed up yet, not to take a tangent.
Yeah.
And I think he's out now, so I'll use his name. This was Mike Mayer.
Yeah.
We were over at 618. I wasn't even in that barracks yet. This was like a Saturday.
Yeah.
He beat the ever-living shit out of us with a jaw that was wired shut from surgery.
I remember.
His daughter was walking around and 2 dudes just got up and ran towards where they thought the bell was.
I remember that, and I remember that surgery because we went to Buzz around the same time.
I have never been more fucking sore in my life.
Yeah. I mean, there was even remember Instructor Disney. Remember
yes.
Disneyland?
Yeah.
Literally a relative.
Not the happiest place on
earth.
Yeah,
literally a relative of Walt Disney himself, and he had Disneyland. Here's what we have to understand about the way we process, actually any human processes information, and that is when we are in any environment, our brains are trying to figure out 3 aspects of that environment, that situation. Those aspects are duration, how long this is going to last, pathway, our route, in, out, or through, and outcome. What's the end state of this? When we are in absence of one or more, that's when uncertainty and fear begin to rise, and anxiety and things like that. The example would be this. We have, you and I get strep throat. Okay, strep throat is a known disease. People don't die from strep throat, and there's a known antibiotic you can take for it. So when you have something like strep throat, you are in absence of only one of the 3. You're in absence of duration. In other words, you know the pathway, antibiotic, and you know the outcome, I'm going to get better. Yeah. Duration might be unknown because you might get over, antibiotics might work more rapidly for you than it does me. So our uncertainty anxiety level is mild. Now imagine we get the flu. Okay, a flu is also a known disease that most people, at least if you're in the first world, won't die from. So you know you're going to get better. But you are in absence of pathway because there's no known thing you can take for a flu. There's some techniques and things that people say, but no known thing. And you don't know how long you're going to have it. So you're in absence of duration and pathway, but you do have an outcome. Now our anxiety level, our stress level, our uncertainty level is higher. Now let's take a disease that rolls through the planet and never been seen before. Some people are dying, some people aren't. There's no vaccine, no known cure, and we don't know how long this is going to last.
Potentially involved in gain-of-function research, not a big deal, hypothetically.
That's hypothetically. However, for many people, it sounds quite familiar, right? Because this is 2020,
of
right?
Of course, yeah.
So,
we're just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
That's exactly right. Now we are in absence of all 3, duration, pathway, outcome. Okay, this is when uncertainty level, anxiety level is at its highest. And
this is when you hoard toilet paper.
This is when you hoard toilet paper, if you're one of those hoarders. However, the secret is, and this is a secret all of us stepping onto the beaches day 1 of Buds already know because we practiced it somewhere before, is what I call in the book moving horizons. Okay, moving horizons is a process where you pick something to focus on, and in doing so, you create certainty by creating your own duration pathway outcome, your own DPO. So, perfect example at Buds, you're running with those damn boats in your head during Hell Week. It's 3 a.m. and I remember this happening. It's 3 a.m. We're on the beach and we're by that big sand berm. Okay. And I remember saying to myself, fuck, I said, okay, I'm just going to focus on getting to the end of the sand berm.
Yep.
Okay. What I did in that moment inadvertently was I picked a horizon and created a DPO. Duration from now until end of sand berm. Pathway from here to end of sand berm. Outcome end of sand berm.